Okay, so remember last time when we were talking about how I'll do the intro this time and then next week you'll do the intro and then an entire month passed?
Hang on to your fronts, Planny. We're going to save Lucy.
Nothing came out, so we had nothing to watch, nothing to see. Like, the closest thing was The Kid Who Would Be King, and that was like, I super don't know if I care at all. So, and, right over the horizon was this movie, so.
Yeah.
It was kind of like, we might as well just go dark until this one comes out, because then we'll really have something to talk about.
Yes. All right, so the way this is going to start out is we are going to do a thumbs up or thumbs down to say whether or not we liked the movie. And
we haven't talked about it yet. We
Right.
haven't talked to each other about it. We saw it at the same time, but we haven't said what we feel about it.
Right, and once that's done, once we give our thumbs up, thumbs down, you can decide whether you want to leave the movie or not. If you've decided that's enough information for you, you're going to leave the video. That's
yeah. Good. Like when some people they just look at the Rotten Tomatoes score, they're like, I don't want to waste time reading. We'll not waste your time with you doing the watching. It's like, if you just want to know, good or bad, and that's all you need, you can just take off.
All right, so Lego Movie 2. Does it suck or slap? 1, 2, 3.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, slaps. There's a lot of good. There's some that's not so good, and I think there is some that's kind of bad. Maybe not kind of bad, but very frustrating, in my opinion. But I think coming off of Into the Spider-Verse, Lord Miller Productions are completely on fire, and I think they're going to take over, because they did Lego Movie Part 2, they did Into the Spider-Verse, before that they did Lego Batman, Lego Movie, Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs. 1, not 2.
Thank God.
2 was awful.
Lord.
Not their fault. But yeah, I feel like when I first saw Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs, I was like, this is from just nobodies. I've never heard of them. What else have they done? Clone High? What's that? Apparently that show's really good. But the humor was like so on point, and I was like, these guys have got to get something good. They gotta get turned loose. And then they did the Lego Movie, and I was like, I don't know if that's the right fit, because now you're doing a brand. You're gonna make a movie off of a toy brand. They're not gonna let you have any fun. Mm-hmm. And boy, was I wrong.
Yes.
Apparently, Lego's branding is like, is it a good movie? That's all we care about. I know you haven't seen Deadpool 1 or 2, but those movies make fun of other superhero movies a lot. They don't come anywhere close to how bad the Lego Movie 2 roasts the DCEU. The DC live-action films, I don't think have ever been made fun of this bad on a big movie screen. And this is like Warner Brothers. Well, they almost did Solo. They were almost the guys that did the Solo.
Man, can you imagine?
I feel like it would have been a lot better, but I feel like it's probably full of instances where they're kind of poking fun at Star Wars and Disney and George Lucas, and maybe Disney was like, I don't like this. I don't really like you guys making fun of us so much. We're a little insecure about that. But
I feel like it would have been much more of a better, fun, loving swashbuckler if they had done it the way that I really, really wanted it to be. But anyway, back to Lego Movie. But
I'm just saying, there's hit after hit after hit, and it feels like, weirdly enough, out of all the kids' movies that come out, and I think this, although Into the Spider-Verse was much more reverent and far more in love with Spider-Man than the Lego Movie seems to be in love with Legos, or even just pop culture in general, the Lego Movie almost comes off as a spoof, or a parody, it's a parody of pop culture and stuff. And they're very on point and very snappy with their parody and their social commentary, which they do make. There's so much social commentary in the first and second movies. And I was thinking they have a different director this time, so maybe they're pulling back on that, and they're like, we should make this appeal to kids and families and make it appeal to a general audience. And you watch the first movie, and it's just like, wow, this is like this is original SpongeBob's legacy. The first 3 seasons of SpongeBob were just like, this seems a little too funny for its demographic. And the Lego Movie almost felt a little too smart. And the second movie didn't hold back on that. Chris Pratt is just phenomenal.
Yes.
I think his performance, the second movie where I was like, I wonder if I think because it was happening again, it's twice in a row, where Emmett as a character just has this energy that doesn't come off as cynical in the midst of a very cynical script. Jack McBrayer is kind of like, this is his thing that Chris Pratt's doing a really good job at in the Lego Movie. Where like Jack McBrayer is, he's also Fix-It Felix.
Oh yeah.
Like
okay, yeah.
his voice is just a constant beam of sunshine.
Yes.
Like you can't be upset with him. Like you can barely be upset with yourself when you hear him talking.
Yeah.
It's like, man, you're just bright. You just lighten up the room.
Mm-hmm.
And Chris Pratt as Emmett does such a good job of that. And I'm not going to get into spoilers yet. We'll get to that later. But
yes.
This movie shows off Chris Pratt's range as a voice actor,
The
not
duality.
just the duality of man.
Yes.
The duality of Emmett. Pleasant surprise. This movie's kind of a musical.
Yeah.
So it was like,
fun.
yeah, we got Mary Poppins, which is a musical, and then sort of I'd say it's like half of a musical, where it's like I think there's 4 big musical numbers, but there's no like smaller musical numbers.
Right.
It's all like these are the musical numbers, and there's only 4 in the full runtime, not like 6 or 7 that were in Mary Poppins, but I liked all of them, and I really like the first one.
Yeah, me too.
Like
I really like that one.
I don't know if it's a spoiler because that character wasn't in any of the trailers that I remember. Okay, so that character's kind of a reveal, like one of the main parts of the movie. I don't know how much I should say, but gosh, that first song is so good, and it's a good bit into the movie where you're like, this is like Lego Movie 1, and then they're like, wait a second, is this a musical? Just the animation, like, okay, you remember how the first movie did a lot of cool creative things where it's like sort of stop motion, sort of doing craft animation and stuff like that. And they did all kinds of the little zoom outs with the things on dangling around and like the mixture with live action. A whole lot of really cool, interesting, kind of expensive but very artistic things they do in the first one. The second one, I think, does less of that overall, but this character that you get introduced to with this new song, the whole movie is just flexing on anyone, flexing on everyone else in the animation industry. Like, Into the Spider-Verse was a whole movie of flexing. This character is an entire character of flexing. Like, every time the character's on screen, it's like, what's that part in Princess Mononoke? Where the boar that shows up, it's right at the beginning.
Yeah.
The boar with the really freaky, creepy worm things, where Miyazaki's just his pecs are just exploding in front of you, and it's like, oh. So yeah, it doesn't disappoint in the animation department, because there are a few things, there are problems I have, but they all have to do with spoilers. So I'm not going to talk about them yet. Oh, okay, well, let's just gush about it. Oh god, the pacing is so good. It's so quick and energetic and smooth and brisk, and it's like, I hear this thing for action movies where they're like, if people like the action movie, it's like one set piece after another, and a set piece being, like a location or event that a scene is built around. This movie is full of set pieces. Like, I remember parts of the movie based on what the surroundings looked like and what people were doing. Which is good, because that means things are happening in your movie. Like, it isn't just people standing around talking in some location. There's relentless motion, and that conveys the feeling of adventure so well. And the first movie, I think, did it a little better, because it was less of a half and half story. This movie is really like, it's kind of 2 different movies, and one movie is about captives trying to escape, and the other movie is about a hero's journey, and they happen mostly separate for most of the time. But in both of them, even the one where they're captive, they don't really stay in one spot for very long. Like, there's so much momentum, and I remember one part when they find that little town, that little suburban neighborhood, where I was just like, this is just moving. It's just going. We're on to the next thing, and it's also really interesting.
Yeah.
And I'm having a great time watching it, and they're having a great time animating it.
I also don't remember it getting so fast that I just wanted to break.
Yeah.
Like in Wreck-It Ralph.
Yeah. There were little things that, these little extra jokes or things people would say before cutting to a different scene, where I'm just like, that's in there for the trailer. That's just a little meme, a little memey joke.
Yeah.
That's just there for the trailer and didn't really make sense. You know, like the little sitcom, like, oh, what's up with that or something, and it cuts. It's like, I feel like you could have cut those and just had them in the trailer. Maybe it would have been a smoother transition, but I can't stay too mad at it. This is the last kind of good thing I have to say about it. And if you ever saw How to Train Your Dragon 2 with, like, a parent, or specifically, like, with your father, or if you were a father and you saw it with your son, you know that, hey, they didn't tell me what I was signing up for. They did not tell me what I was signing up for when I went there with my sisters, because this movie got me twice. It got me crying twice. And it was like, it was eerily precise in its stabs for the heartstrings. So, like, the first movie had the frame story with the father and son that wasn't as much of a part of it. It was kind of there right there at the end. And it was kind of used as a metaphor. Whereas this one, it's definitely not a metaphor. It's almost the central conflict. Where it's like, I mean, this movie's about duality, yin and yang and all that. And it has the brother and sister thing and the conflicting, I guess, conflicting goals and motivations and like, I don't know. It's hard to not get into spoilers. Oof. This movie has a lot of twists.
Yeah.
That I don't quite want to spoil yet. But there was twice in the movie where I was just like, why did I come here with my 3 little sisters? I didn't know this was going to be coming after me this hard.
Yep.
Like, I think when General Mayhem takes off the mask and is, like, explaining everything, I was just like, stop. The stuff that wasn't so great, maybe a little here, not really here or there, but it isn't a spoiler. There's a lot of Batman in this movie.
Yeah.
Which I think is weird, because there's more of him than there was in the first one. Which I was thinking, okay, Batman was the popular character in the first one, so he got his solo movie. And at some point in this movie, they say, where's Batman on some kind of solo adventure? But then right after he comes back, and he's a huge part of the movie again. Like, I'd say he's the 3rd or 4th most important character. And it to a degree, it kind of, he has his own story that takes up a big chunk of it. So I thought that was a little strange, because I'm like, I thought maybe the Batman solo movie was to let him have his own thing, and then we can focus on the other characters, because Batman isn't an original character, so it can only really be so much about him. However, we got a lot of great roasts and a lot of great Batman humor out of it, so that's basically all I had to say without going to spoilers.
Okay.
Do you have anything else to add?
Nope. It was a good movie.
Yeah.
Fun. It's
a good movie. Go see it. And I think it's appealing to all ages, much like Legos.
Yes.
All right, now we get into the spoilery stuff.
Spoiler alert. And
what's funny is that I barely had anything good to say about the stuff that had to do with spoilers. I think somehow two things. I think they tried too hard with the twists, and they didn't try hard enough.
I feel the same.
Yeah.
Oddly. Yeah.
Like, they tried to go big with the twists, but didn't put the work in. And I don't think it was necessarily it wasn't necessary to go that big in the first place. And if we are going to go there, I don't think enough, I just don't think enough effort was put in. I think it started to kind of bite itself back when it went for all the the pop culture humor.
Yeah. Where
it's like, once again, full spoilers. If you have seen the movie, you'll know what we're talking about. So I guess if you haven't seen the movie but you don't care about the spoilers, there's a character that's introduced named Rex. And Rex is kind of the thing that gets Emmett to start growing as a character. He's kind of a role model for him. And then there's one twist where it's like, Rex is evil. Second twist is Rex is Emmett from the future. And I think maybe only one was necessary if you're going to do a twist at all. I'm not entirely sure either was necessary. But you could do Rex is Emmett from the future and not make him evil, or just make Rex evil. Doing both of them kind of made it a little messy. And then the explanation for the time travel stuff, they put some effort into explaining it, and then after that, I don't think it was quite satisfying, and they end it with, I don't know, this time travel stuff is a little confusing. It was kind of like, that's a funny joke, but you also are using that as a cop-out. Mm-hmm. So, I don't know. And yeah, Rex's tragic backstory, him being like the version of Emmett that no one came to save. I feel like maybe it would have worked better if Rex is an Emmett that diverged from Lego Movie Part 1. Or like the version of Emmett that... Not something that happens in Part 2, especially like the thing where he shows up. I don't know. Mm-hmm. I feel like it was a bit of a cop-out, and I think either Rex should have been a different person, or if he was going to be time-traveling Emmett, he shouldn't have been straight-up evil. Which I think...
Pure evil.
They made him way too evil. And then at the very end, they start kind of trying to redeem him, but it's only because now he's disappearing and he's not going to exist anymore. Mm-hmm. Like, a lot of his actions leading up to there don't really make sense with him being so, like, cold-hearted. Like, he does cold-hearted stuff at the end.
Yes.
And I think that also made it a little fuzzy as to the utility or, like, the importance or the growth for Emmett being, like, he learned how to be a master builder, now he learns how to be a master breaker. And that's not really a bad thing for him to, like as far as, like, traditional archetypical, I don't know which one, hero's journeys go, you want to kind of have a darker, like, okay, we're doing Luke and Vader again, but Vader is what Luke turns into if Luke succumbs to the dark side. Like, Vader's original purpose isn't just to be Anakin Skywalker and to have had his own stories. Vader's original purpose in the original movies was, this is what Luke could become if he succumbs to, like, vengeance and hatred and stuff like that. You know, this big, intimidating, cool character who has, like, power and presence and can get what he wants, but is also crippled and damaged and, like, has to be helped to breathe. And then, you know, Luke faces him on Dagobah, the image of him, cuts off his head, sees his face. And, like, that's kind of the point, is you face your dark side, and you don't just face your dark side, you kind of integrate it. That's why in Episode 3, Luke is wearing black, because he now has a dark side. He has the rage and the power, but he is in control of it. It doesn't control him. He also, you know, gets a green saber, which is less, you know, the red and blue is kind of a black and white thing, where he has a green now. He isn't, he's a mixture, not a mixture, that would be purple. Shoot. He's less obviously the good guy when he's using the green saber. But it means he's more complete.
Yes.
You know, you can't have just dark side, just good side. There's a balance to the Force. So, when he said you're going to have to learn how to be a master breaker, I was like, this movie's freaking brilliant. Like, this is so good. He learned how to do the master builder thing.
Yep.
So now he and in the beginning of the movie, he's helpless. He can't protect his friends. You know, he builds that mech and it immediately falls apart. And it's like, oh, Emmett. You're so
Emmett.
You're so innocent and kind. And it's like, well, he couldn't save people because he was too nice to the threat. But the threat in the bigger story is the sister trying to reach her brother. So it's like, you've convoluted it. You've made it messy now. He doesn't need to learn how to be, like, that almost would have worked better in the first movie. The Master Builder thing, or the Master Builder thing being, like, connecting with your family. Master Builder works better as a metaphor with that. Whereas Master Breaker, I don't know, this would have gone better with a story if the boy was, like, dealing with a bully or something. Him learning to kind of stand up for himself, stop being so naive and innocent, and, like, to get a little tougher. Like, that's not a bad message, that's a good message. That's kind of why, I mean, it's almost like the role that Wildstyle plays in the first movie.
Right.
Where it's like, she's rebellious, she goes against the grain, and as a result, she can do all these things. She's opened her mind. She's more creative.
Yep.
That would have worked with Rex because Rex isn't more creative. Rex just isn't afraid. And it was weird that you have that character who we're supposed to believe was Emmett previously. It almost makes the case where it's like, yeah, you shouldn't be innocent because then the first thing something bad happens to you, you become evil. So it's like, you gotta land somewhere in between, but, and I think they could have saved it if at the end it was clear that Emmett had learned somewhere in between, or had landed somewhere in between, but then I'm not convinced they really say that. Like, Lucy is saying, I preferred you when you were, like, innocent and kind and stuff. And it's like, that's not right. No, that's incorrect. You're not supposed to want him that way. You're supposed to want him to be kind, yes, but you want him to be capable and not innocent. You don't want him to flinch at things. You want him to be able to stand up for himself and other people. And, I don't know, it was almost like, I don't know what the movie's message was. Like, it was like, I'm almost getting the feel, it's like, well, is change bad? Should you not go through emotional struggles to come out a little tougher, a little stronger? I don't know. The ending kind of, I think, contradicts itself and maybe gets a little too caught up in the brother-sister thing. Like, I feel like maybe at 2/3 of the way through the movie, it starts being unable to reconcile all of these elements it's trying to hold together into one cohesive story or one, one message, one theme. And the themes, while not necessarily contradictory, they didn't mesh them well.
There's a lot of themes, too. Everything doesn't have to be awesome. It's okay if it's okay.
Yeah, it's okay if it's not all good, all smiles and happiness all the time. Wow, okay. Rex didn't have to be evil.
Yeah.
It was weird. Like, Rex you could have even kept the part where Rex is like, I'm just going to have to make sure you turn into me. You could even have kept that, but make it for a less selfish and obviously psychotic reason. Make it to where Rex is seeing, you're going to get screwed over, and you're not listening to me. Now I'm scared. Not just for you right now, and not just because I might disappear because of the timeline or whatever, but because I don't want this to happen again. So he could get desperate and take things into his own hands and try to, I don't know, make Emmett become more like him without Emmett really wanting to, because Emmett did want to in the start because he felt like something was missing. But then the part when he throws him under and then he goes in after him and starts beating him up. Yeah, that was like, what in the world? This is crazy how bad he is. Like, you can have Rex be the wiser, older, harder Emmett and have him still be wrong about things. Without him being evil. Yeah, you can have him have misread this and have maybe become a little too much of a loner who's self-reliant and doesn't trust anyone. You could still make him competent and someone to look up to while he's being flawed and is wrong about the plot. About, what's actually happening. Like, don't trust them, don't trust them, don't trust them. You can make him still wrong about that without making him bad. You can still have made him have good intentions. And after he goes back underneath to beat on Emmett more, I'm like, this doesn't make any sense. This is insane. They've completely lost the narrative now. And yeah, having him disappear at the end saying, I don't know, what did he say? He said something like, which the person you've become, I guess, is kind of because of me, so he's kind of, saying, well, because you've gone through this, you're now better, so I kind of did a good thing. That was like, oh my god, you guys, you did this wrong. You clearly were trying to do the thing I'm talking about, but I don't know, I feel like maybe this is a process of a few too many people were changing things at different times, and maybe the script went through a few too many hands were writing this one. And I saw the story was by Phil Lord and Christopher Miller, but there was also a couple other names, and who knows what they don't tell us. But yeah, I feel like it was so completely solid and fantastic until a few too many twists made it confusing and conflicted. But the fact that I care that much, like, tells you this. It's so strange that the Lego Movie is so good and has such good characters, like good, likable characters that you know by name. Like, you know, the Wreck-It Ralph isn't attached to a brand. Toy Story wasn't attached to a brand. The Lego Movie is, and it's a brand that is toys. It's not characters, yet these characters are so good and this world is so good. And
I will say, one of my only issues. So, Batman is going to marry Emmett's creation. Because Emmett created the heart, and the heart was the queen.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I guess it's not that weird.
Well, I mean, if you consider the fact that all of them are just toys that were made one day, that someone made one day. And it wasn't really Emmett's creation. It's more like, you know, one of the two gods that they are all beholden to. Also made made the queen. So
I guess so.
Yeah, man. It really gets confusing when you take the frame story into account. I almost feel like the Lego Batman movie really benefits from having nothing to do with that.
Yes.
But that's one of the better and more complete themes in this movie, was the one that happened outside of the Lego characters. So, yeah, I mean, throw everything at the wall, something's going to stick. We have 3 stories we're going to tell. Why not just tell one? Because one might not work. So as long as one works out of these 3, I think we did a good job. Also, watch the whole credits.
Yes.
If just because the credits are fun and the song that plays, the first credit song, makes a good argument for watching the credits, because it's about watching the credits. Also, hey, kind of fun to hear The Lonely Island again for the first time since the last Lego movie had The Lonely Island. But yeah, it's good.
It's good.
Slaps. Y'all should go see it. Phil Lord, man. Not Phil Lord. Yeah, Phil Lord and Chris Miller. Lord and Miller. They're on fire. Just unstoppable. Had the best animated movie last year. Probably going to have one of the best, but How to Train Your Dragon 3 is coming out this year. So really, who else stands a chance?